The announcement in a few days of a second batch of strategic enterprises that will set up shop in the city. Suspected body parts spotted in waters near Hung Hom. And talks aimed at securing a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war are expected to resume in Qatar. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Financial Secretary Paul Chan is going to introduce some 20 strategic enterprises to the city this week as part of the second batch of such enterprises attracted to the SAR. He added the government is taking steps to enhance the city's position as a cross-border supply chain management center. The finance chief believes the measure will attract more mainland enterprises to set up regional headquarters in the SAR.
The current administration emphasized the need for Hong Kong to attract businesses and investment to boost the economy. Over the past year, the government has attracted some 30 strategic enterprises to the city. This as Financial Secretary Paul Chan announced on his blog that another 20 or so enterprises will be introduced to the SAR this week. He stressed the two batches of enterprises will invest over $40 billion in the city and generate more than 13,000 new jobs. Most of the jobs will be research and management positions. The Financial Secretary believes they will help boost Hong Kong's innovation and technology industry. Chan also wrote that the latest budget suggested enhancing the SAR's position as a cross-border supply chain management hub owing to a shift in the geopolitical landscape. In 2003, the SAR's exports to the U.S. and the European Union accounted for around 19% and 11% of the city's total exports respectively. But last year, they both dropped to around 6%, while Hong Kong's exports to the ASEAN region and the Middle East experienced an opposite trajectory. The Financial Secretary said both manufacturers locally and from abroad have made adjustments to their supply chain structures. He noted some 50,000 medium-sized manufacturing enterprises in the Pearl River and Yangtze River deltas have offshoring needs, and Hong Kong can provide a one-stop service for these enterprises, offering supply chain management, consultation, talent training, and trade finance services.
Suspected human body parts were found floating in waters near Hung Hom. Police are trying to identify the deceased person. Authorities covered the remains with a black bag. The police received reports at around 10 this morning of suspected body parts floating in waters near the Hung Hom Ferry Pier. Officers arrived at the scene to conduct investigations. The identity of the deceased and cause of death are currently unknown. At least 3 people were injured after a minibus rammed into 3 vehicles on separate occasions within 10 minutes in Yuen Long. Police have arrested a 64-year-old minibus driver on suspicion of dangerous driving.
The minibus was traveling on Route 39 between Yuen Long and Pak Sha Chun on Kung Am Road. The vehicle was impounded by the police after the incident. It sustained serious damage to the front, while some windows on the vehicle's left side were cracked. The crashes occurred at around 12:30 p.m. when an empty minibus traveling on the Tom May section of Castle Peak Road was suspected to have lost control before ramming into another minibus traveling on Route 72. The latter was carrying 16 passengers at the time. 3 passengers aged between 39 and 81 reported minor injuries and were sent to hospital for treatment. In around 5 minutes, the minibus traveling on Route 39 crashed into a Kowloon motor bus near Yoho Midtown. Just 1 minute later, the former crashed into a private car on Awning Road before fleeing the scene. Large amounts of glass could be seen strewn on the road. Authorities later found the minibus at a garage at Shongqing San Chun on Taitong Road. Officers arrested a 64-year-old male driver on suspicion of dangerous driving, as well as failure to stop and report after the accident. Breathalyzer tests indicated the driver was not under alcoholic influence at the time. Sources said the driver was planning to get his minibus repaired at the garage after the crashes, but the technicians called the police after they became suspicious.
The observatory says the public should expect cool weather starting from Tuesday. The city was shrouded in fog today. Some residents wore thinner layers of clothing during the day because of the warmer weather. The observatory forecast the warm and foggy weather to remain on Monday, with temperatures ranging from 20 to 24 degrees Celsius. However, a cold front will sweep across the South China coast next Tuesday, causing a drop in temperatures. Stalled talks aimed at securing a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war are expected to resume in earnest in Qatar, Egyptian officials say. It would mark the first time both Israeli officials and Hamas leaders joined the indirect negotiations since the start of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan. Hamas gave Qatari and Egyptian mediators a new proposal for a three-stage plan that would end the fighting. Nazvi Karim has more.
The first aid ship has delivered its load, creating a maritime corridor for more vessels. And the airdrops continue from US and Jordanian planes high above the coast of Gaza. But for these refugees in the Mawasi camp in southern Gaza, the situation is still desperate. Khan Yunis resident Wael Miqdad said they saw planes dropping aid and people fighting over it, adding some children drowned in the sea trying to retrieve parcels of food. Spain's open arms vessel is on its way back to Cyprus after delivering 200 tons of food and supplies, while another ship is being loaded with goods and waiting for the green light to set sail for Gaza. Agencies say aid is still being prevented from entering Gaza because of crossing closures, strict vetting and unrest inside the strip, while Israel says there are no limits on aid trucks. The United Nations Relief Agency in Palestine, UNRWA, says people in the north of Gaza are facing famine, with 1 in 3 children under 2 years old in the area acutely malnourished. Meanwhile, ceasefire talks are set to resume in Doha, Qatar. Israel is reportedly sending a delegation headed by intelligence chief David Barnea, even after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described Hamas's latest three-stage proposal as unrealistic. It calls for a 6-week ceasefire in the first stage, during which 35 Israeli hostages would be released in exchange for 350 Palestinian prisoners. Stage 2 would see a complete halt to fighting and the release of soldiers held by Hamas. Finally, Israel will lift a 17-year-old blockade on Gaza and reconstruction would begin. Hamas spokesman Osama Hamdan said no one can object to it, referring to the proposal. Netanyahu, though, wants only a temporary ceasefire and still insists on attacking Hamas in Rafah, where 1.5 million Palestinians are sheltering. For these Israelis, any deal that frees the hostages will do. Thousands took part in weekly rallies calling for a hostage deal, while others also held anti-government demonstrations. Police used water cannons to control the crowds, who are angry at how Netanyahu's government has managed the war and are demanding new elections. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
In the U.S., former President Donald Trump warned of a bloodbath if he loses the November presidential election. Speaking in Ohio, he made the comment about talking about China using Mexico to build car factories. Trump was campaigning for Senate candidate Bernie Moreno, telling the audience that democracy would be dead in the U.S. if he were to lose the election. Trump is likely to battle it out with President Joe Biden on November 5th in what is expected to be a close fight. He paid tribute to supporters in jail for the January 6, 2021 riots when they tried to block certification of Biden's election victory in 2020. He said President Xi Jinping is a friend of his, but he would impose heavy tariffs on any Chinese cars made in Mexico.
Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. No, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Areas of Pennsylvania and New Jersey had to be shut down as police sought a gunman who is thought to have fled after shooting dead 3 members of his family in Philadelphia. Police arrested 26-year-old suspect Andre Gordon Jr. in New Jersey after a manhunt across state lines. The alleged gunman was apprehended in Trenton. Armed police surrounded a house where they believed the man was hiding, although he was finally caught walking unarmed on the street. Earlier, police had cordoned off a suburban street in a Philadelphia township. Several people were shot at 2 locations. Police believe the suspect killed his stepmother, teenage sister, and the mother of his children. No motive has been given. Gordon managed to evade police by taking a car to Trenton. Concern for residents meant Philadelphia's St. Patrick's Day parade was canceled. A Sesame Street-themed amusement park was also shut down.
It is very unsettling. I mean, the street and the neighborhood, my neighbors were just outside with me last night, and we were just saying how great of a town and great of a neighborhood it is. And then, you know, what was it, just a month ago or 2 months ago, there was the beheading. and then, we get this going on.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi is scheduled to visit New Zealand and Australia this week. His first stop is Wellington, capital of New Zealand. A New Zealand scholar says enhancing bilateral trade with China is part of the new government's goal to develop a broader and deeper international economy. More in this report from Sakura Ip in Wellington.
Foreign Minister Wang Yi starts his trip by first landing at New Zealand's capital, Wellington, tonight. China is the largest trading partner of New Zealand. In 2022, bilateral trade reached $25.15 billion, covering goods such as Chinese-made garments and electricity devices, as well as dairy products and meat exported from New Zealand. In April 2022, an upgrade to a free trade agreement between the two countries entered into force to enhance trading, service and investment opportunities. Starting this year, New Zealand's dairy products can enter the China market duty-free.
So I think for the New Zealand case, it's really a question of how New Zealand can add more value to the products which we sell into the Chinese market and maintain that really good economic trading relationship.
He also thinks that New Zealand can be a testing ground for China to engage the West.
The New Zealand case is a really interesting example of how China can work and engage with a Western-style liberal democracy in a sort of a small case, as in the small country. It perhaps makes it a bit easier. The stakes are a little bit less high for China.
The scholar also suggests that China and New Zealand can have more collaborations in tackling climate change. Sakura Ip, TVB News, Wellington.
Still ahead, the final day of voting in the Russian presidential election. A look at the latest lung cancer situation in Hong Kong. And festivities paying tribute to the Chinese deity of the Southern Sea. Welcome back. Russia is voting on the final day of presidential elections. There is little opposition to Vladimir Putin extending his more than 2 decades in power by another 6 years. Russian authorities say deadly Ukrainian drone attacks are trying to disrupt their democratic process. David Garrett reports.
Belgorod's governor took to social media as fear gripped the city. Vyacheslav Gladkov ordered shopping centres to close and said Monday and Tuesday are days off for school children as a precaution. More Ukrainian attacks are expected. Kiev vowed to hit back at Russia after a missile strike on Odessa killed at least 16 on Friday. It all comes as Russians vote for a third day in presidential elections. The vote seems certain to extend Vladimir Putin's grip on power. The incumbent in the Kremlin is running against 3 other weak candidates who broadly back his war on Ukraine and anti-Western policies. Ballots are also being cast in Russian-occupied areas that are still internationally recognised as Ukraine territory. The UN has been critical and the US called it propaganda. There was dancing, balloons and bunting outside polling stations in Mariupol. The city was the focus of intense fighting 2 years ago as Russia took control of the city. Many fled, but those who have remained say Putin gives them a sense of peace and stability and is restoring their city. But in Kharkiv, a city near the front line where the yellow and blue flag of Ukraine still flies, there is much scepticism. Russia has been unable to take control of this town or much of the region. The head of the Kharkiv Regional Civil Military Administration says, look, it is fiction. Basically, this is the reinstallment of Putin. It doesn't mean anything. We are expecting nothing from this farce. Back in Russia, voters cast their ballots willingly, with a few exceptions. This woman was branded a traitor after vandalising a vote in Moscow. Several people have poured blue liquid into ballot boxes. A woman was arrested and could face 5 years in prison. David Garrett, TVB News.
In Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro has become his party's official nominee for this year's presidential election, allowing him to stroll into a 3rd consecutive term with no real competition. Maduro's main opponent, Maria Corina Machado, was disqualified by Venezuelan authorities from holding public office for 15 years. On Saturday, Maduro accepted the nomination as the ruling United Socialist Party's candidate for the July 28th elections during a party gathering in Caracas. According to the party, their decision was backed by over 4 million members who chose their candidate last week. Maduro said he has the support of the people. He came into power in March 2013 following the death of Hugo Chavez. The Cancer Information Charity Foundation discovered that 70% of lung cancer patients interviewed were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Most 9 reports.
Lung cancer has been described as the top cancer killer in the city. In 2021, the number of recorded lung cancer cases was 5,978, resulting in the deaths of more than 4,000 people. To understand the background of local lung cancer patients and their awareness of cancer screening, the Cancer Information Charity Foundation interviewed 110 individuals between October and December last year, with 70% being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Many of them were aged between 50 and 60. 80% of the cancer patients said they never smoked, while 12% said they had already quit the habit. Only 8% said they were smokers. When asked about their family history regarding lung cancer, 24.5% said some of their family members have had the disease. 60% of the interviewees did not know about cancer screening tests. Meanwhile, over 95% said the government could have introduced more measures to support lung cancer patients. A specialist in clinical oncology stressed the importance of conducting lung cancer screening. The survival rate of patients who are diagnosed with stage 1 lung cancer is over 90%. The current most effective cancer screening method is low-dose computer tomography, or LDCT.
It's a three-dimensional image of the lungs. Considering the image quality, which should be sufficient to detect any lung nodules, many of the early-stage lung cancer appears as some sort of small opacities in the lungs. On low-dose CT scan, depending on the protocol and other technical aspects of the examination, will probably the dose of radiation will be around 5 to 10 times higher than that of the ordinary chest X-ray.
A lawmaker urged authorities to step up their supportive measures for lung cancer patients.
They have the cervical screening program, they have the breast cancer screening program, and also the colorectal screening program. We hope that they can extend to the lung cancer screening program because it aligns with the primary health care principle that they can diagnose at an early stage so that they can extend their life, and also at the same time they can save costs on healing the cancers.
The lawmaker also hopes the government can introduce new anti-cancer drugs in Hong Kong, allowing patients to receive suitable treatment. Minibus 9, TVB News.
Several areas in the city celebrated the Hung Shing Culture Festival today. Some residents organized dragon boat performances to pay tribute to the traditional Chinese deity of the Southern Sea. Rowers of these dragon boats at Ap Lei Chau paid their respects to the local Hung Shing temple by sailing towards it 3 times, symbolizing 3 bows. Locals also placed water lanterns into the sea as they prayed for blessings. The Hung Shing Culture Festival has been celebrated for over a century and was listed among the city's intangible cultural heritage in 2014. Organizers of the event said they hope festivals like this could encourage the younger generation to participate and keep local traditions alive. That's the news. Thanks for watching.